Thanks for coming to Reasonably Sure. We're here discussing exactly why we are here, because this is the Young Turks, and I thought a good way to bring in this show would be to bring it in with my friend, but also the founder of this network, and a complicated, interesting, passionate person who is a close friend of mine, but I will still talk to him as if we just met 20 minutes ago in a green room. It's Cenk Uygur. Cenk, thanks for coming on my show on your network.
Happy to do it.
All right. Well, you
and
better
I
be
agree
happy.
that I'm complicated.
Yeah, no, but I don't think complicated is a pejorative word.
No. My life is very complicated. It's definitely true.
What's complicated today? Tell me, I know how busy you are. Tell me what's complicated today.
That's a great question, actually, and almost no one has ever asked me. So we're off to a good start. So what's complicated is balancing all the different interests in running the company, the Young Turks, and then at the same time on a different track doing the content. So today I want to be on your show. I'm going to be on the Young Turks later today, but how many segments can I do while I'm still doing business meetings, and what percentage will Anna do, et cetera. So my life is a constant matrix of trying to figure out how much I could squeeze in both business, politics, like getting money out of politics. I went to a convention just this weekend in Washington over it, constantly flying around and having meetings over that, and then the content of the programs that we're on. So that's the matrix that I struggle with every single day.
When you started this, and I know because I was witness to it from literally day 2, it was just to do something. It was a passion. It was to broadcast. It was to get your opinions that had been bottled up out. You're an entrepreneur on the one hand. You are a broadcast talent on the other. Yet that has changed a little bit because now you're a businessman, which you weren't at the very beginning. Is there a negative to that?
Yes, but that answer is also complicated. So the obvious negative is time restrictions. So I love doing the show, and I love doing a lot of our shows. We were talking off air right before we started. I'd do this every week if you let me. Right.
And then I replied that I wouldn't let him.
That's true. Right.
We're trying to get new voices,
and variety,
yes,
of course. And I love old school. I love TYT Sports. I love What the Flick. I saw Solo and I wanted to review it so badly, and I ran out of time. Right. So I love the content of it. So doing the business side, unfortunately, of course, restricts my timing. So that's the downside that you're referring to. On the other hand, people assume that I don't like the business end of it, and there are parts of it that are definitely uncomfortable and that I don't love.
Tell me what some of those are.
Well, accounting, right? Just like the nitty gritty of having to manage an enterprise, and now we're about 100 people big. At the company.
But at the same time, I imagine, knowing how this has started, knowing the shoestring that it was on, knowing that you wore Steelers sweatshirts to meetings, and now you wear this, and that there's something that's kind of, there's a moment where you're in a meeting about 100 employees and the company's growth and where you're going, where you think, this is pretty cool, this is great.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting, because you're right, I wanted to get to that. People think that I don't like the business end of it, and that's not true. I actually love the business end of it. I might not love some of the managerial aspects of it, but I like leading, I like having a vision, and at the end of the day, making the numbers work, that's an interesting game, right? Like politics, unfortunately, that game has a lot of real life consequences too, so it can be really painful at times. But overall, making a business grow, making it thrive is an enormous challenge. And what is special about this and why I love it so much is because we get to grow a business about something we love, which is spreading progressive ideas. And so our mission that we started the show with, when it was just a radio show and no real business, and our mission today is still the same, and that's part of the reason why we had to make it a bigger business, because you're not gonna be able to spread that message far enough if you're small. In fact, in the shifting landscape of media today, you'll get washed out with the tide. Whereas we wanted to make sure that that message got everywhere because we really don't see enough other people doing it. I mean, we're the home of progressives, and progressives need a home. They need the Todd Kalinskis and the Jimmy Dores and the Nina Turners and you and so many others, the Idols and the Anna Kasparians, et cetera, to have a place where we represent them, where we're their voice. And so the bigger we make the business, the bigger that message gets out, and that brings us back to the matrix of my life.
Listen, I know as a witness to how you manage it that it does become very difficult for you at times. I also know, and I want to ask that a little later, but the idea that if you open a restaurant, you want to get to the point, maybe I'm serving 100 dinners a night. I'm in the building business, I want to build 2 apartment buildings a year. Is there a finite goal that you have for this company? Do you sit back and say, we're not at X or we're not, well, you don't have to tell me what it is, but how, is that kind of what you're directed toward all the time, or is it just spreading a message?
So I'll tackle both ends of that. First of all, I like business for business sake, and so it's not an accident that I went to business school, and I did real estate with my dad briefly when I was younger, and that had no external mission.
And you're a lawyer as well. So
yeah, that I didn't love, but I did like business. I did like real estate, and just succeeding at that was a rush, right? I was briefly a salesperson. Succeeding at that was a rush, and so I liked that aspect of it. But in terms of this particular company and why it means so much more, if you're asking me, worldview and what do I ideally want? I want TYT to start revolutions in Egypt and Russia and China and the US and actually represent the people. Not revolution for revolution's sake and not physical or violent or anything like that, but a political revolution, a cultural revolution. That's an unfortunate word, but it's true. A revolution of how to think about these issues and how to think about our culture. I want people to be more secular. I want them to be more progressive and more open-minded and more open to one another. And can we do that across the world? If we do it just right, and it is extraordinarily difficult, yes, we could set up a news network that is the largest in the world and that has that kind of effect.
And that is progressive at the same time.
Absolutely, that's the whole point. The point is to get that message of inclusiveness and caring for one another and compassion and empathy and having that guide our decisions both socially, culturally, and politically.